Are you trying to work on your hip mobility, but every time you start a video, people have you getting into pancake folds? Or you see all those people swearing up and down that they learned to get into a split in less than 30 days from having zero flexibility? Don't worry about it, because I am here to help you out with hip mobility in a very beginner-friendly way. We're gonna use seated hip mobility exercises to get you primed and ready for more advanced hip mobility routines if that is your goal. So find yourself a comfortable place to sit down and let's go have some fun. Starting with our first exercise, a seated forward fold. Now we're gonna open up our legs, pushing our knees outwards. We wanna have external rotation in both of our hip joints. Bring your hands right here behind your head. Extend your upper body, fully upright. And all we wanna do from here is with a straight back, bend forward as much as we can. It doesn't have to be a very long movement. It can also be just the tiniest hinge in your hip. As long as you stay fully upright in your upper body, you're gonna get some nice mobility benefits in your hip flexors and your glutes, as well as the outside of your upper leg musculature. So we're just bending in our hip and extending once more. Keep your spine neutral or slightly extended. Move forward as much as you can. And once you notice that your lower back is starting to round, that is the end of range of motion that we're gonna use. Extend your back, sit up all the way, and repeat by pushing forward in a neutral or slightly extended spinal position. Moving us to internal seated hip rotations. For this one, we will have to scoot forward just a little bit so we have enough space for our knees to move inward, pushing our hip into internal rotation. Once again, it doesn't have to be a really long movement, just a short but controlled one is more than enough to be able to work on your hip mobility. Internal rotation in your right hip, reverse and switch to internal rotation in your left hip socket. Now our feet are leaving the ground on the outside, and we have this nice rotational force on our knee as well, even though our knee is not a rotational joint, which means that we are also strengthening our knee joints in this particular stress situation, which is this outwards rotation in our lower leg. Internal rotation left side, internal rotation right side. Be very careful, especially if you have pain. It is acceptable to have the tiniest bit of discomfort, but having real pain in your joints is usually a sign that you're overdoing it, your range of motion is too long, or you have a problem that needs fixing and you need to have it checked out by a doctor. Now we can start adding some hip flexor strength. We're gonna close our legs, extend them fully. We're still seated. You can lean backwards and fully extended in our left leg. Lengthen your toes and pull your leg up as high as you can without having to help out with your hands. We are flexing our hip flexors, lower abdominals and quads. We are also flexing our calf musculature and foot musculature to get into ankle extension, reverse slowly, and repeat the entire process on the other side. Pull up as high as you can without having to help. Your end range of motion might be here, your end range of motion might be here. It doesn't really matter how long the movement is. As we said before, this is all about repetition, and over time, your range of motion as well as your strength in those movements will increase drastically, especially if you can do those exercises every single day. This way, we can strengthen our entire anterior chain, basically all the way up to our upper abdominals. And switch it up and switch it up. Now moving to a static exercise to release some of the tension as well as give our hip musculature a break. We're gonna bring our foot right over our knee and we're gonna start pushing our left knee down towards the ground. If you can bring the left knee to the same height as the right knee, you're already pretty flexible and limber in your hip joint, especially in the external rotation, and turn your foot upwards just so we can increase this ankle extension as well. Pull your toes in, hold for 30 seconds. And once you are done with the left side, you can do the same thing for the right side. Foot right above our knee, push your right knee down to the ground, pull your toes in, extend your ankle, and go into this external hip rotation in the right side. Hold once more for 20 seconds, then 30 seconds, and then release and shake it out before we move on to the next exercise. And this moves us to one of my favorite low impact hip mobility exercises. The turnaround is what I call it. Basically, you want to elevate one leg, cross over, turn sideways, and reverse the movement. Get over here, get over with the other leg, and switch sideways. Now we're learning to control our hip flexors and our abdominals to keep us upright in conjunction with our quads to lift this leg up. And the closer you keep it to your upper body, the more strength you will require in your core. Meaning if you are really weak, you can extend your leg and turn sideways. And if you're really strong in this movement, then pull it in as closely as you can. Set it back down, switch to the other side, and turn around. All the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down. And one more repetition together before we move on to the next exercise. Now, since we've worked a lot on hip flexion, but not enough on hip extension, lengthening our hip flexors and our quadriceps instead of just strengthening them, we will have to switch seating positions down on the ground. Now, if you cannot sit comfortably like that with your ankles in complete extension, then use something to elevate your butt when you sit down, and over time you will be able to remove a block, remove a block, and at the very end we should reach the range of motion where we can sit down comfortably. You don't have to use yoga blocks, you can use books or whatever you have at home to elevate yourself. And this is also going to help you make the movement a little bit easier as well as shorter. All we want to do from here is push our hips forward, lengthen our hip flexors, and bend backwards in our back before we sit down once more. Now it looks like a really short movement here, so if we remove all those little helpers, we can sit down here and push forward, lengthen our hip flexors. We're in external rotation in both legs. We need to flex our glutes and our spinal erectors to push forward properly before we release and sit down all the way. If you don't have the strength to push forward from here, you can help yourself with your hands, and once you are upright, start pushing forward once more and reverse the entire movement by sitting down fully and releasing the stretch. Now we are learning to flex our entire posterior chain to release tension and stretch our anterior chain. Bend backwards and reverse. Now, this is just for demonstration's sake. The last level of this exercise should be bending forward, just like so. And then we're gonna slowly move back all the way and sit up once more. Which means that over time, you should not just be able to hold it here, but you should be able to move back more and more and more over time to get a better stretch in your anterior chain, more control over your posterior chain, and it feels absolutely amazing being able to lengthen all of those muscles simultaneously. This brings us to our final two exercises and the final time where we have to switch starting positions into a resting deep squat, leaning on a wall. Move back to a wall, and we're just gonna shimmy down all the way until we can sit down comfortably and lean back fully. Now, there shouldn't be too much pressure on any of your joints. If you are very stiff in your ankles, chances are that you will be seated more like this, which is absolutely no problem. Over time, you will be able to get more and more into this ankle flexion. Don't worry about it, because all we need to do from here is start with internal rotations in our hip joint once more, which means that we're bringing our right knee to our left foot. We're leaning back. We're using the least amount of strength that we require, and return once more. And you can push your back against the wall to take off more and more of the pressure from the movement. Bring your knee down and up again. You don't have to have the full range of motion yet. You can move all the way here. If this is the end of your range of motion, that's absolutely perfect. Just go through the movements, and over time we will get better. Just being able to push our knee down also brings us into this insane ankle flexion, which in turn is going to help us over time getting to a resting squat without having the problem of stiff ankles. Internal rotation, right knee, and internal rotation, left knee, reverse. One more time for each side, to the right, to the left, and back into our starting position, which will be the same starting position for the next exercise. We will combine internal with external rotation, and then we're basically done. Right knee in front of your left foot, lengthen your ankle into extension, and now the left leg sideways, outwards into external rotation. We're still leaning, we're still seated, very relaxed. There shouldn't be any pressure. You should, at the maximum, have a little bit of discomfort from the stretch, but that's basically it. And now we can either use our back pushing against the wall to bring both of those legs up, or we can help with our hands, just like so, getting to our starting position. Repeat the whole process on the other side. Left knee towards the right foot, lengthen your ankle into extension, and right leg into external rotation. We're sitting in this 90-90 seated position, which is amazing for both hip mobility as well as control over time, being able to raise both legs just like so, and repeat to the other side. Right internal, left external, all the way down, reverse, and repeat to the other direction. Left internal, right external, and back into our starting position. As for programming, if you can do each of these exercises for a complete minute before you move on to the next one, now you have a complete routine you can use on a daily basis. If you don't have the time for that, you can maybe do it 2 or 3 times a week, or just add it to your own hip mobility repertoire. But with that said, basically that's all the time I have left for you today. If you liked the video, like the video and subscribe, and please check out other videos on this channel, because we literally have new ones every single day. And I will see you tomorrow. Captain Cairo. Peace out.